Hello, thanks everybody for joining us this morning on our webinar. Today we're going to be addressing visual search. More specifically, we're going to be looking at our visually similar search product. You're going to be joined by myself, Josh McGregor. I'm the head of marketing here at Salesfire, and also our CEO, Rich Himsworth, who sat next to me.
Hello.
How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not bad.
So, in regards to the agenda, we're going to start by looking at introducing the concept of visual search and just giving you a bit of a background on how we sort of came to some conclusions which led to us developing the product, really. Then we're going to look at the proliferation of visual search and how that's sort of spread across the internet and retailers specifically, how they're starting to really fold that into their sort of marketing stacks. We're going to do a quick demo of our visually similar product as well. So we'll run you through what ours looks like. Ours is a bit more advanced than some of the others on the market, but you'll get a good handle on sort of how it works and what the basic tenets of it are there. Then we'll be looking at how we optimize your search, so some quick wins and sort of actionable insight and how you can go away and start looking at this on your site right now and potentially start folding some of those products in too. Then we're going to wrap it up at the end and we're going to answer the age-old question, is it worth the hype? It's pretty on trend, that, isn't it? Then we'll do a Q&A straight away. So we'll get into it. Do a quick introduction to me and Rich. So I'm Josh. I've been looking after the marketing team here for about 2 years now, I think. I think that's about right. So we're in charge of selling this product basically and putting all of the assets and things like this together. And then Rich is our CEO. How long have you been there for now?
4 years for my sins.
Yeah. 4 years for his sins. Still counting. So we'll do a bit of intro to Salesfire. Do you want to start, Rich?
So in the beginning, we've started off and we've got our name as a kind of overlays provider. And we got up to speed fairly quickly with that. We got a product together that was fairly efficient and a lot of uptake on it. And then we didn't want to just stay in one place. So the idea was if we can help, the whole premise of what we're doing is to help people's conversion rates. So in doing that, we needed more touch points with people on the websites. So search is a big area to do that. We can have a lot of impact on conversion off the back of it. Obviously, we've already got the overlays, but then started to look at things like prompts, abandoned orders if people have moved off site, and product recommendations, and basic kind of tailoring the product, the buying journey, so to speak. So I guess what we're looking at now is with visually similar. We've kind of got this product that's really cutting edge, and now the idea is how we bring it to market, introduce it to the market. Obviously, a few of the big players are already there with it at the moment. What we want to do is make it more affordable and get it so that it's quickly implemented across hundreds of sites, make it an industry standard, but also see how we can then kind of bring it across all of our product suite as well, employ it across overlays, employ it across abandoned orders and things like that over time.
Sort of get the products playing into each other and sort of working quite nicely.
That's it, yeah.
Same stack.
Get that interplay going on.
I think it's key, obviously, to point out as well that the team we built here is the years of industry experience when it comes to platforming and e-commerce in particular. So
yeah,
everyone is quite keenly aware of like certain pitfalls and the day-to-day issues that e-com managers, marketing managers have, and I think that's what's quite unique about the offering as well. We've been there on the ground floor with it, so we sort of address those day-to-day issues relatively early on in the development of some of these products.
Yeah, well, we understand that you can have all the fancy tech that you want on your website. If you haven't got the time or the manpower to kind of get the most out of it, then it's going to be to no avail. So it makes sense having things that you can implement quickly and get a fast return on them. And I think what's happened to date, to be honest, up until the advent of kind of visually similar, I think conversion rates on sites tend to be kind of topping out quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the feel.
It's interesting.
You know, people add wish lists onto site, send to friend, pay later options, things like that. That's probably been the greatest shift in terms of uplifting conversion.
Yeah,
the pay later kind of options.
Yeah, that's true.
And the kind of mobile payments, I guess, making them a lot more slick, so you can check out within a few button clicks. Mm-hmm. But really, apart from that, it's kind of stalled. And I think with visually similar, this is the first time that we've been able to it's almost like a technology advancement that's really going to allow us to kick on a lot further now, I think.
I think it's an interesting segue that as well, coming from what you've just said in regards to sort of wish lists and things like that. I think for a long time, platforms and sort of e-com managers and the like have sort of been in a bit of a muddle with what's actually going to create those incremental changes in conversion rate as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see all these new things like wish listing, sort of the social proofing and things like that, but it hasn't been particularly clear in a way of what's actually causing those changes and those wins.
Well, everyone's brought in more functionality into existing technologies.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. I think this is where the eye opener with visual search was for me. I think, we'll go into it a bit here anyway. So this next slide, introducing visual search. I think Pinterest has been a big one, a big eye opener for me anyway, when we've been doing the initial research and we've been doing the development. There's the quote here from the CEO of Pinterest, Ben Silberman. I think this was last year. He said this, that the future of search will be about pictures rather than keywords. And I think out of context, you'd be probably wondering, why does that matter to me? Coming from this guy you probably maybe not heard of before, but we'll go into a couple of the stats here as well in a second. So visual search, I think this is a good intro for it, and to create a bit of context. The average consumer can recall 65% of visual content that they're seeing through ads 3 days later. Up to 3 days later, they can still sort of recall these different ads and bits of content that you're putting out there, which sort of goes somewhere explaining why display advertising is having such a big impact, why we're seeing people move towards TikTok and Instagram and becoming more visual with the sort of the message that they're conveying. And another stat here from Business Insider, at least 39% of apparel businesses are using search more often as a resource when it comes to customer engagement. We see that with influencers. We see that with, again, changes in the way people are searching. And that's apparel, home decor and electronic businesses, which is 55% of the market overall, which is pretty mind-blowing. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. That's backed up by our stats as well. So that's a bit of context on how well it's been implemented and sort of how people are looking at it. But let's go into the uplift and sort of see how people are actually using it. So next section, we're going to look at the proliferation of visual search and how it's started to spread across various different channels and how we're seeing it used more specifically in a sort of e-tail way. So where and how are we seeing it at the minute, and where is it currently implemented? I think the biggest example, harking back to the quote we started with, Pinterest at the minute is completing over 600 million image searches a month. And the tech right now is recognizing over 2.5 billion items. So when we say recognizing, what we mean there is that this bit of tech is actually, it's crawling through your imagery and it's picking out various details, whether that's a shoe, whether it's a bit of architecture, whether it's food stuff. It's the AI's getting to the point now where it can start identifying things, more importantly, identifying where they're sourced from, where they're being retailed from. 21% of Pinterest users won't use a text search when they have an option of using a visual search tool instead. And I think we were discussing this earlier, Rich, when you were talking about how you go through Pinterest.
Yeah, rabbit holes.
It's a rabbit hole, yeah. What is a rabbit hole in that context? It's you're going through an image and then you're moving to a slightly different one.
Yeah.
You go into a similar piece of clothing, then you might end up on, I don't know, sort of more lifestyle imagery. They might end up looking at drink stuff or going out stuff.
They seem to profile people extremely well, I think, on there. You just end up you end up kind of doing an initial search, and then it just leads you off in so many different directions, really.
And I think that's a great tool for retailers to start in a harness when it comes into getting people to move to areas of their sites that they might not have got them there to before. Obviously, we'll go into this in a bit more detail before, but I think as people are starting to develop that initiative with the technology, there's obviously a long way to go when it comes to the education pieces and how people are using it and putting it together. But I think we're going to start seeing that a lot more across different channels. Another big one here, which retailers need to be aware of, is 90% of its users' purchasing decisions are informed by the information they're getting through its tech. And I believe that's linking through to the original storefronts, the original Instagram pages that are now selling things, the original Facebook Marketplace posts as well. So it's becoming pretty undeniable at the minute. And we have a couple of sort of lesser examples, but I think they're only lesser in the context of they're not being pushed as hard. I think the Bing visual search technology, it's different to Pinterest in that it's a bit like Google Shopping, but it's now got this visual element. It's got the visually similar search element to it as well. But more interestingly, Amazon's visual search app, Style Snap, which they've been developing relatively quietly, I believe, because it wasn't until recently that this was sort of brought to our attention.
We had a bit of a go with it this morning, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a try of it this morning. It's not totally dissimilar to sort of how our product runs, to be honest.
Yeah.
But obviously it's Amazon specific, and you have to obviously be you're selling on Amazon, be doing Amazon FBA or something like that. And even then, I'm not sure it's open to everyone, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It'll
I
get
think so.
incredible traction on Amazon,
Oh, it'd be crazy.
without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, we were just clicking around it this morning. So imagine by the time they've they've processed all the images and every product that's available on Amazon, it'll be incredible. Really, it'll just open up a brand new way of searching. At the moment, people go through filters, they go through categories, or they go through the actual search, the written search across the top of the site. This one will just be just as effective, I think.
I think
Wouldn't surprise me if it actually, visual search actually starts to dictate, almost change out, because there's less of a reliance on keywords.
Yeah.
It could be the next kind of evolution in terms of how people lay out an e-commerce site as well.
Well, there's that, and then there's also, if we're talking about sort of keywords not having that prominence and that importance that they once had, if this is something Google starts picking up on, we might be sort of seeing changes to how ad spend's being pushed about as well.
Yeah, tends to be the most effective marketing spend is Google Shopping, because people are literally just seeing exactly what they want. It's not a text description anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's, they see what they want, they click through and they purchase it. So it's always converted a lot higher for people.
Yeah, and it's no coincidence as well that Google are concentrating so much on display ads as well and pushing people towards that type of thing. And the more of the video content, they're really their algorithms are weighted really heavily towards that at the minute. And it's because of sort of stats like these, we're seeing people lean much closer towards that visual element.
Yeah.
So we'll move on now. Some stats we've pulled out from our own dashboard. So on average, home and living has saw over 1,000% increase in revenue in image search than the average typed search since we introduced it on the 1st of Jan, which is pretty crazy, to be honest.
It's done all right then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, considering it was something that was a bit of a hunch to us before Christmas, I'd say, before we sort of went full speed with developing it. These are the numbers, essentially, which sort of push the business case for it. In fashion and footwear, since the 1st of Jan, image searches have topped any other typed search term by 2,056 clicks, and we've seen 1,353% increase in revenue from that. Again, this is sort of what piqued our interest, and we were like, we need to get this up and out. Hence was talking about it today. And then accessories, a 410% increase in click-through rate as well.
Yeah, we started to see these in testing, these types of stats, and then pretty much shelved our roadmap. Until we got it out there.
If we're going to be honest, we had our roadmap until this point was very much focused on our speed and our site, our search speed, and these are pretty undeniable arguments for going ahead with a visually similar search, to be honest. Right, so I'll pass this over to Rich now. He's going to take us through a quick sort of product demonstration and take us through a little bit of the pitch for it. Arguably the better salesman out of the pair of us. So, what are you laughing at? I don't understand. Our producer's laughing there. I don't understand, but yeah. There you go.
So the main place that we've implemented visually similar is in people's product pages. So when someone lands on the item in question, we introduce like a banner. Now within that, we actually started off with like a text banner. That was our first attempt. And pretty much kind of ironically, based on what we're talking about, people weren't really reading the text and fully understanding what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's a new technology, so over time it takes time to kind of implement and become familiar with users, I guess.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I said to someone, what does a wish list typically look like? People would say, well, it's usually like a love heart symbol. People understand an account.
Checkout, same thing, isn't it?
Exactly, that's it. Now, visually similar, we've created a button, but it will take time for it to become synonymous with visually similar. So what we've done to bolster that is we've introduced visuals, of course. So what we do is when someone lands on a product, we then do a visually similar search in the background and pull through the most relevant products. And then when someone clicks on Explore Now, we then load. It's very similar to our actual on-site search that we do, our kind of text, voice, and image search that we do. But we basically pull back the results in ascending order of what's visually similar. What we can do if you're more of an advanced user is you can crop down the image as well, and it'll take samples. So, for example, if you want to focus down into a particular material on the product, it will actually find things of a similar material. So quite flexible, makes it really easy for if you're for example, and we got this a little bit in the first instance. A lot of people saying, well, visually similar is a bit too advanced for our older users, but these older users will use on-site search. They will use filters. To be honest, if they can't click a single button on the website, then I think it's where it's misunderstood. I fully understand with things like cropping and things like that they're more advanced features. But for example, in my car, I don't understand all the features it has. But I'll still drive it around okay. And then again, what we've done is every product on there, we've also dropped in the camera icon in the top corner of every related product. You can actually upload your own product there. Whether people will do that remains to be seen. I think that's where we saw a lot of companies introduce this in the first instance.
Yeah.
I think the likes of ASOS kind of introduced this as upload your own image. Take a picture of someone with a watch on that you like. Try not to get arrested or frowned upon. Or
I think it's because conceptually, that sounds like the dream, doesn't it? When you're saying upload your own imagery, upload your own lifestyle imagery.
Yeah, it does.
But in practice, it was very little uptake.
Yeah, and I think because in the grand scheme of things, every independent retailer or brand's got such a niche catalogue.
Yeah.
You could have 10,000 products. That's so niche compared to how many products there are actually out there.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be done. I mean, eBay and Amazon are going to be, if you're going to upload an image, I'd understand they might get a bit more traction.
Yeah.
But to be honest, we looked at it, we liked the technology, we liked the idea of it, but we fully understood that you'd go into people's dashboards, and we see it now anyway. We go into people's dashboards and would see that the only people that were uploading an image are myself, one of the BD guys in the company, and the director of the prospect.
Probably showing to someone in the pub or something like that.
That's it, showing off the tech they've got. Great if you want to stay on the cutting edge of technology, but I think we were probably the first to kind of actually implement it on the product set or portfolio of products that people already have on their website. So very quick to implement. We've made sure that it's effectively like a line of code to put into people's sites. Again, we're working off our best practice. Again, it's kind of related to the success we've had with our actual on-site search that we've got for people.
Yeah, it plays into our sort of mission statement, for lack of a better sort of term for it, doesn't it, with how we've gone about doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also it meshes across the other products that we've got. So obviously we've mentioned there that we've got it on the product page as a standalone button. We've also got it in product recommendations. So it's also be prominent in basket recovery emails. So typically when you send out a basket recovery email, it will include your products that you left in your basket. But what we'll also be looking to do is look at the customer journey through the site, see what products they took an interest in, even see what they've actually searched, what keyword searches there were, cross-reference it against what they've actually put in the basket, and then actually do visual searches in the background and produce similar recommendations based on what's visually similar to what's in the basket.
Yeah, I think I should have pulled some stats, because we have actually some great stats in regards to open and click-through rates on these trip follow-up emails from the back of having such a personalised and highly specific recommendation in there as well. You're going to get more people opening because everything they're looking at is more likely in sort of the space that they're going to be looking for things as well, which is also cool. I'll probably follow up with some stats on when we do the wrap up that we send out after the back of it. Right, so that's the product in a nutshell, and I think that is fairly representative as well of the other sort of products that are out there too. They're all pretty much of a similar ilk, but the main selling point for ours and our USP is how that does fit into our basket recovery emails, how that fits into our other products as well. And then keeps them all one tight package.
I think what's happening at the moment is it's across many technologies. Most technologies that come along and an agency of some sort begins selling it, and it's very, very expensive and it's very long-winded, the implementation and the integration of the technology.
Yeah.
We've taken the principles that we had with overlays, that we've had with search and everything else, and made it so that it's effectively a line of code.
Yeah.
It's a line of code and a shopping feed.
We're not rebuilding your site. We're not rebuilding.
No, and that shopping feed doesn't even have to be. I mean, we've seen all sorts of the conditions of all sorts of different shopping shopping feeds, some good, some bad, some ugly, very ugly. So we're just interested in the images and pulling the images in and analysing those images in the first instance.
Am I right in saying that the product feed, if you have a bit of a dodgy product feed or you want one that isn't the cleanest, that it'll still work just the same as a sort of fully fledged one that's been managed by an agency?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it can make it can make your product feed stronger because we can actually tag what we see in the image and then feed that back into the product.
That's a good segue into our next section, which is where we're going to be looking at how we can optimize your site and your search and sort of prepare to start bringing these visual search elements onto your site and making it part of your customer journey. So 50% of online shoppers are saying that image and products motivate them to make a purchase. So this is sort of a case of going back through your inventory and sort of taking stock a little bit and looking at your product imagery, like how good is it? How clean is it? Oftentimes they're not the most inspiring shots that we're seeing on the sites that convert. It's a white background, it's very clear, the lighting's good, you can see the product from most angles, but it's really important. It's something that we say time and time again. You've got all this product, you've got a wonderful inventory, but it doesn't look good and it's not showing off what people want to see. People aren't going to come through and purchase. And you can have the best sort of visual search on site in the world, but if your imagery is bad and you've not sort of kept on top of that, then you're going to really start struggling. It's great for SEOs again, when we start looking at how people are tagging up these images. An e-commerce manager, most of their time is spent adding new SKUs to a website. And when you're doing hundreds of those a day, and then you're also adding 3 or 4, 5 tags onto those products as you go through them, there isn't a bigger sort of pain in the ass for e-com managers. So what visual search can do is it can help you work a little bit smarter when it comes to your optimization. So when somebody's making these searches and we're processing these products, not only is it providing a really specific result for you, we're now able to sort of take what we're learning and the AI is going to actually tag these products up for you. So say you do have the bad quality feed and sort of not the cleanest output for it there, we can start doing this for you. So your feed optimization services and those type of things, it's not going to be quite as good as that, but it's going to take some steps towards making your feed a lot cleaner and making your search a lot smoother as well. So the other thing is looking at image text and alt tags and things like that. I know a lot of people, it's something that sort of, when we're working with sort of SMEs, the smaller teams don't really have time to be going through and doing all these things. If you've got an SEO retainer with somebody who've got specifically in-house, this is something that people will be doing quite often, but it's worth looking at even for your smaller companies. It's worth going through and just taking stock of it a little bit, maybe looking up some guides on the internet or reaching out to your agency or something like that and getting those to guide you through it. Another good one is cross-promotion of brands by using search. We've got the door example we were discussing before, Rich.
Yeah, absolutely. So what people tend to do in the evolution as a retailer, they tend to be quite brand heavy. Brands are what people search for on the web. It's very difficult to get people looking for shirts, but for example, Ralph Lauren shirts, it's going to be a lot more. I guess it's a lot more niche than that very generic term. So you tend to get more quality purchasing traffic. Once you've got established over a period of time, you can then supplement those brands with your own brands. And you've seen that on the likes of ASOS. You've seen that with a lot of major retailers, just because the markup and the margin's a lot higher. So what they tend to be, they're the cheaper brands that they sit alongside, or the cheaper products that they sit alongside the branded traffic generating products, so to speak. And they tend to be the ones that ideally, as a retailer, they want to be the ones that they're selling and gradually migrating, in most cases, migrating their product range towards, because that's where the margin is, and that's where eventual retirement and selling your business lies. So that's where visually similar works really well. Quite often, I mean, you see it on the high street even, there'll be the designer top of that, you know, the £200 t-shirt or polo shirt that's in the really upmarket fashion store, and then the likes of your Top Shops, Top Mans.
Yeah, you can say that now. They're gone. It's all right.
Can say that.
Lawyers won't be getting in touch.
Would have the £15, £20 version of that top. So that's your opportunity really to cross sell those. We've got someone doing it with like a hardware merchant at the moment doing it, and they sell products where there's potentially 10-15% margin in them, and then their own products that they've got that are non-branded that look very, very similar, they're the ones that they're wanting to cross-promote. So visually similar naturally does this. It naturally kind of gets more product in front of people.
It's an interesting one, that. And then our last tip for that is what we found when we implemented our the animated button. It's making sure you've got it set up on your product page, but making sure that education pieces are available around the site, because it's a brand new bit of tech in its essence. So there's going to be the next few years where we're finding a lot of people are going to be putting those education pieces out on the socials. We've even seen companies putting it on the main page in some of the banners, because it's that when they're getting people to engage with it, they're seeing such high results and they're seeing such high click-through rates, and then the obvious revenue off the back of it, that they've deemed it that important that they're going to be putting a main banner towards it.
Yeah,
I think it was a huge homewares retailer we saw recently. I won't name check them, but that was their main banner for a few weeks at one point, where they were pushing everybody towards this visual search. So it's making sure that you're shouting about it, but also making that those education pieces are upfront and visible as well.
Well, it's here to stay.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing.
The stats are incredible off the back of it. The interaction's growing very quickly off the back of it as people become more educated on it. Your big players are doing it now. So gradually gradually what you're going to see is people starting to implement it in different ways, different places. We're already starting to see some companies that kind of implement it into lookbooks. So they've got lookbooks, and then you can kind of dissect what they're actually wearing and visually similar to what's actually being worn on in the lookbook photos. But starting to see it across other products, and that's the realm that we're in now. We've already got it implemented into our product recommendations, so it's just another factor, that we take into account when we're making recommendations on site for within the customer journey. But also looking at bringing it into overlays, as we said, abandoned orders,
cross-pollinate and the rest of the
search. Actually, it's already running across our search. So already it's across at least half of our product portfolio, our tools portfolio at the moment. So I think you'll just start to see that more and more.
It's a good callback to where we opened the webinar and we were discussing sort of the wish lists and those bolt-ons that sort of were brought in at a bit of a desperate time when people were looking for improvement on something that had already been so like fine-tuned so highly. And now we're going to start seeing this sort of leak out into those bolt-ons.
It's in its infancy, really, isn't it?
Completely.
I think it's in its very early days. But I think just kind of rounding back to what I was saying before, I think what happens is typically with any new technology, take search bars, for example. An agency or a big company gets hold of it, charges a lot of money for doing a lot of work in refining your search, almost like a managed service for those customers. Tends to be very expensive. Then over time, someone comes along, and I've used this analogy quite a lot over the past few weeks. Someone makes McDonald's of it, and basically makes it so it's very, very quick to turn around and pulls the price right down and goes after a large customer base. And that's very much in the mindset that we've got. So I think what we tend to be faced with is when we come up against kind of objections almost for this, it tends to be one of my user base is too old to kind of get the head around this.
Which is a tad paradoxical as well, because I think we found when we discussed with people that it's actually making it easier and more accessible.
Absolutely, it's one click. It's one button click. Anyone can find the way around Pinterest, really, can't they? Because it's just literally clicking on pictures. You think when you're a child, like most toys, you're clicking on pictures and things. You're not clicking on words. It's too early on.
It's super intuitive. It's almost simpler than learning what a browser does and sort of what a search engine does.
So I think it's been very quick, and I guess we've been very quick to make it into this kind of SaaS product. And I think the other thing that people are kind of wary of is they naturally associate it with a huge cost. Yeah. And in terms of what it's doing and what it's processing and things, and like the teams behind it, we've got intelligent guys behind this.
Yeah, and I think the cost factor is it's only previously been accessible and rolled into larger search packages where you're looking at your $5-10 grand a month
yes
suites, where this has been a part of it, but not cut off and served up as its own
I
product.
think it'd be surprise retailers how quickly this has become financially viable.
I think
Like we're literally charging from £100 a month for it,
which is crazy when you look at you look at those
because
bigger
we'll sell
packages.
it 2,000-3,000 times over.
Yeah. And I think we've actually answered our question from our last slide there with that last 5 minutes. Is it worth the hype? Is visual search worth the hype? It's a big yes from me, obviously. I'm assuming it's a yes from you as well.
Oh yeah, naturally.
Yeah, naturally.
But I think companies outside ourselves, Pinterest, look at the stats on there.
Exactly.
Off the back of it, like it's the big companies that are already finding this. So.
And then just to sign off before we go into the Q&A as well. So according to Forbes, I think this is a stat from the end of last year, the early adopters of visual search are projected to increase their digital e-commerce revenue by 30% in the coming years, which is it's based on their own data sets, I believe. So that's
Wow.
That pretty much galvanizes what you've just been saying there, to be honest.
Why haven't we got that on the front of all of our marketing material?
It wasn't that long ago I found it. So, and the market for visual search products was in excess of $25 billion in 2020. So I mean, it's one of those things. It's like Bitcoin, isn't it? Now's the time to be getting in on it, really. So you don't be looking back in 6 years and going, "Oh, I could have had one of them." What a way to round it off. Right, thanks for listening, everyone. And we're going to go into a Q&A. So any questions we've had in the chat, we're going to get them sent over now, and we'll go through it.